Welcome, my dear friends. It's a special occasion to see you. What makes this time so special is that we gather to celebrate people in the restaurant industry punching each other in the face as hard as they can, to raise money, to teach young people how to batter each other about the neck and ears, but with skill. The event I'm speaking of is Eastside Fight Night, and the cause it benefits is Eastside Boxing Club's outreach programs, like the youth program for at-risk youngins, their youth leadership program, Buddy Boxing, and the Frontline Fight Club for first and frontline responders. More details on the fight and how you can help after the reading. In case this is the first of our joyous meetings, I am Stephen Clements, a writer, a gamer, and an appreciator of big brain activities in general. On this channel, I perform dramatic story readings, provide role-playing game reviews, and I get to interview interesting people. In this episode, we get to read publicly for the first time a short story by one of the swinging restaurateurs, an ascot aficionado, a Greek sex bomb, and a good lad, Marinos Anagnostopoulos. While he prepares a short story collection for publication later this year, I've been privileged to read some of his short stories in advance. The rugged characters, the violent action, and the dramatic tension fit them squarely into the sword and sorcery world of Conan and Solomon Kane. I hope you enjoy hearing this as much as I enjoy reading it. And now, let's get on with a reading of The Gift for the Goddess by Marinos Anagnostopoulos. Come back with this shield or on it, Spartan proverb. The river Eurotas flowed happily through the Laconian valley. To the west towered the Taygetus mountain range, looking down at the city and farms below. The sky above was black and peppered with twinkling stars and a waning moon that shone against endless black. Throughout the lands of the Greeks, wise men looked up at the starlit skies, watching as different constellations did battle with each other in the curious heavens. Not in Sparta. Sparta slept. The symphony of the cicadas, who had been perched on the olive trees throughout the day, singing under the hot summer sun, had concluded. Lysippus stood watch at the river. The summer heat of Helios remained behind with the darkness of night after he rode his fiery chariot over the mountains in the west. And so the humidity had the young warrior's crimson tunics drenched in sweat as it stuck to his skin. Lysippus still limped after his first battle a month ago. He had followed the Spartan army to the other side of Taygetus mountain range into the lands of Messenia, where the land was rich and fertile. The Spartans had attempted to conquer Messenia and her rich lands, but the Messenians rose in revolt, preferring to risk their lives and forfeit their freedom. The Messenians were led by a warrior named Aristomenes. He led the Messenians into battle at Darai against the Spartans when they came upon Messenian soil. Lysippus remembered the rebellious, muscle-bound warlord presenting himself before his army, rousing them into a frenzy. On his shield was an eagle, proud and strong, with its wings intensely spread across the shield surface. He had presented himself before his men in black armor, with long black horsehair plumes protruding from his helmet. Like a panther, he prowled up and down the lines, with eyes that seemed to glow with hate and bloodlust for his prey. He gave a menacing battle speech before his men that silenced the Spartan king into intimidation, and had roused his own men into shouts and distressing roars. Their death is our freedom, Aristomenes called out. Our freedom is their death, they replied. The Messenians started singing their pain and marched forward. The Spartan officers responded, marching their units forward. The Spartan warriors were better armed for the most part, and felt confident in facing an outnumbered, unprofessional rebel army. The Spartans may have been heavily armed, but it was hot, and the Messenian phalanx slowed down to a slow walk as they sent forward their skirmishers, who peppered the Spartans with rocks, javelins, and arrows. The Spartans started to advance faster to repel the skirmisher attack. The skirmishers fled to the flanks as the Spartans started to tire from the sprint. That's when the Messenian phalanx changed their pace and charged at the winded enemy. Their skirmishers had fled to the Spartan flanks, raising hell on the Spartan sides. The Spartans' helot skirmishers tried to respond, but were ambushed by Messenian light infantry. Hell saw the Spartan flanks, especially the right, where the Spartans had difficulty defending themselves from the missiles, because they held their shields with their left arms. Aristomenes fought like a lion, piercing foe after foe with his spear. The Messenian phalanx would fight and then retreat under the cover of their skirmisher fire. The Spartans were given no peace and were slowed down by the incoming missiles as the Messenians got away. Then the Messenians would stop and charge back into the Spartan line. Many Spartans began to break and flee. Lysippus had not partaken in any direct combat. He got hit by a projectile on his shin. The stone had been thrown with such velocity that it had dented his shin guard into the bone. Hence, Lysippus had to be carried off the field, and still he limped. The battle ended with both armies retreating to their camps. The Spartans, demoralized after achieving nothing and having their men suffering all sorts of injuries from the enemy's missiles, decided to abandon the campaign and go back to Sparta to recuperate. As for Aristomenes, he heard that the Messenians had offered to make him king after his great deeds in the battle, but he declined, accepting the title of general and promising many more daring feats in the future. Lysippus limped along the river, thinking about the battle and the pain it had brought him. He remembered Aristomenes charging into the Spartan ranks, slaying all before him. Zeus save anyone that came into the clutches of that animal. As Lysippus pondered these thoughts about Sparta's nemesis, a hand appeared from behind him and grabbed the bottom of his helmet, lifting it up. Before Lysippus could respond, a blade sliced his throat, and the last thing in life that he remembered was gasping as he floated on the Eurotas River towards Hades. A man with a face painted black appeared where the Spartan stood guard. Long hair covered his naked shoulders, and he wore no armor, but carried a shield with the Spartan lambda on it. Like a shadow, the man moved on and disappeared into the dark alleys of the unwalled city. Teleclus and Eumonus were on patrol. The horse plumes on their helmets swayed from side to side as they traversed Sparta's narrow alleys. Apollo must be on vacation, hence this bone-numbing cold, Teleclus joked laconically. Indeed, replied the older Eumonus, as sweat dripped from his beard under his helmet. Even the gods need to rest. Shh, interrupted the younger warrior. Both warriors paused. Did you see that? Eumonus squinted, trying to make out any forms in the torch-lit alleys. I saw a shadow moving. There, Teleclus pointed, at a dark illuminated by the light of torches. Eumonus lowered his spear and advanced slowly and quietly. They were in the alleys behind the Temple of Hercules. Probably the safest spot in all of Sparta, but due to his training, and to create some excitement to make the time pass, Eumonus advanced with grace and caution, as if sneaking into an enemy camp. To his horror, he heard a noise coming from the darkness before him that brought his senses to full alert. Suddenly a cat shrieked and pounced out of the darkness and into one of the alleys in the crossroads ahead. Eumonus laughed, relaxing his stance. Teleclus, 'tis but a kitten, he said. Teleclus, however, did not respond with words of the Dorian dialect. Instead, he gave out a gurgling hiss. Eumonus spun around to see Teleclus grasping at the red smile on his throat, gashing crimson blood onto his crimson chiton. Above him hovered a well-muscled man wearing nothing but a loincloth. His hair was long and wet and stuck to his powerful shoulders. His face was darkness. Two fearsome eyes, burning like coals within the fires of hate, roasted on a black face. Before Eumonus could react, the black-faced shadow threw his spear at him and entered Eumonus' helmet through the eye slit. The last thing Eumonus saw was the blade grow as it approached his eye, and then he was no more. 2 minutes later, a warrior emerged from the alley. He was dressed with Spartan kit, with horse-plumed helmet and red chiton. He carried a spear and a shield, with the lambda of Lacedaemon painted red on it. He advanced past the Temple of Hercules towards the Temple of Athena. A guard saw him and waved. The warrior did not respond, but advanced toward him. The guard looked closer to make out the face, but behind the helmet there was nothing but darkness. What phantom of Hades was this? Stunned in confusion, he failed to react as the specter smashed its shield into his face and then skewered him with its spear. Theron was an officer of the guard. He cursed as he was shaken out of his sleep by Nikon, one of the guards. Nikon was armed for duty. "What's this?" he complained. "What in the Gorgon's twat are you waking me for, boy?" "My lord, wake up," said Nikon. "Eumonus and Teleculus have not returned from their watch, and we have waited for half an hour." Theron roused himself to the realm of the awake and shot out of bed. "These fools will be punished for their incompetence," he cried in anger. "Nikon, my arms!" The alarm was raised when Theron and his men discovered the body of poor Lysippus floating lifelessly in the Eurotas River. The sleeping city of Sparta turned to chaos as trumpets blared and men called out to search for phantoms and shadows that were killing the guards. Theron followed the trail of death through the alleyways. He found Teleculus with his throat slit and his helmet missing, and Eumonus without his chiton and a bloody mess under his helmet. They were both tucked away in a dark corner and were almost missed as the guards moved hurriedly past them, if Nikon had not tripped over Teleculus's foot. On the guards went running in random patrols, searching the city. Calls were heard outside of the Temple of Athena, where another guard was found dead. The streets and alleys were empty of any intruder, and the patrols began searching buildings. Homes were broken into, interrupting those within. The city was in chaos, but no ghosts were found. "Search the temples," Theron commanded. Into the Temple of Athena, he and his men burst, running in every direction, chasing the killer ghost. They didn't have to look far. The answer to their search sat at the feet of the statue of the goddess. Theron looked in horror and admiration at the shield resting at Athena's feet. It was a Spartan shield, with the crimson lambda painted across it. However, that was not all that was painted across the shield. In blood, there was written a message. The gift of Aristomenes to the goddess, dropped by the Spartans. Now, wasn't that interesting? Let's keep the conversation going. So please drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what you thought about this sneak peek at Marinos' upcoming collection. If you'd like to see Marino get punched in the face, and I know I do, mark your calendars for Eastside Rumble Fight Night, August 24th, the year of our Lord 2023. May he help us all survive it. Links to the Eastside Boxing Club, the Fight Night details, and more in the outro slides and in the description below. If you enjoyed yourselves, I do enjoy people liking and subscribing. I thank you for your time and that you chose to spend it with me, Marino, and the people Eastside Boxing Club uplifts and inspires to be the absolute best version of themselves. As we, dear friends, part for now, I wish you nothing but the best.